In this session of the Purple Coffee Podcast, I speak to Kate Northrup about overcoming those inner insecurities and fighting the urge to splurge. Hello and welcome to session 34 of the Purple Coffee Podcast's inspiring entrepreneurial stories from some of the world's finest. I am your host, Turndog, and on this occasion I speak to the inspiring Kate Northrup, who it's pretty difficult to define what she does. She's helped many people overcome debt and things like that over the years, but she's much more. She also happens to be a best-selling author, an in-demand speaker, and I kind of liken her to the likes of Chris Brogan, where even though you might not specifically get everything you need when you follow her online, she's just an absolute godsend for entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, freelancers, designers, basically anyone who's getting into the online scope. She's just got so much wise wisdom to share, and she's an absolute pleasure to follow. So if you've never heard of Kate Northrup before, well, you better check her out, and I'm telling you now, you'll be inspired by her ways, and that's it. She has so much to offer, and I'm absolutely delighted and honoured to have her both part of this podcast and The Successful Mistake, a book I'm writing about an entrepreneur's grand faux pas and how they switched it around. And in it she shares her great mistake, which focuses on insecurity, and especially when she started out and she partnered with her mother, and we basically just delve into the issue of splurging and trying to con yourself into thinking you have a big deal. It all comes down to really truly believing in yourself and fighting these insecurities by buying a big apartment or buying the fancy car or whatever it may be to make you feel like one of the big boys, where in actual fact all you truly need to do is believe in you and your abilities. And sometimes this can happen when you go into partner with someone else. You do so for the sole reason because you're scared to go it at your own. And I'm telling you, Kate is one of the most inspiring people I've met. She's huge. She's done so much, achieved so much, but even she fought these insecurities, and it wasn't that long ago. So I feel like I personally can take a lot from Kate's journey, and I'm sure you can too. So I'm so excited to share our conversation with you. I hope you take a lot from it. Be sure to get your pen and notepad out, or at the very least rewatch this a few times. So we're going to get straight into things, but before we do, I have a quick special bio which I wrote in Kate's honour, just in case you don't know anything about her. So I will read that to you now. It's rather difficult to say what Kate Northrup is, but an easier task to say is what she isn't. For example, she isn't a coach or financial advisor. She isn't Godzilla. She isn't called Dave. Although, who knows what the future holds, she could yet transform into a 2,000-foot lizard. In the meantime, she helps people understand themselves better themselves altogether, and find prosperity in who they are, what they do, and why they do it. She writes and inspires and speaks and such. She's like so many other folk you'll meet online, yet at the same time, no. She's Kate, and Kate is most definitely awesome. So, here you are. Enjoy her ways. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, a big hearty welcome. Thank you so much for joining us, and a huge welcome to Kate Northrup, who is joining me this evening. And Kate is an author of the book Money, a Love Story, and it's quite difficult to then pin it down after that. Not a coach, not a financial advisor per se, but someone who helps other people find financial freedom. And I love how you say make a life rather than just a living. I think that's very apt, and I think that's something we can all live by. So Kate, first of all, welcome. Thank you so much for joining me this evening.
Thank you for having me.
Well, I'm so excited. For those regular viewers and listeners, you will know this is in aid of my book, The Successful Mistake, a journey all about an entrepreneur's grand faux pas and how they turned it around. So we're going to be getting to Kate's story in just a few seconds. But first, Kate, just give us a bit more of an insight into who you are and what it is that you do.
Yeah, so I do a number of things. So I'm a writer, I blog, I've got my book, I speak, and I mostly teach online courses. So I teach a course called the Money Love course, which goes along with my book. It's like a deeper dive into that material. And then I have a whole other part of our business that's a direct sales aspect that is the business that I first started out in when I was a teenager with a supplement company. So I have a whole team of a couple of thousand people that I work with, helping them build their businesses in the direct sales industry. So got my hands in a lot of different things.
Wow. Certainly keeping yourself busy. And I'm sure lots of people have come across you online. You do a lot of blogging, a lot of writing, and a lot of online courses. And like you say, helping people, I suppose, find meaning in their business rather than just kind of getting a job or just creating a business for the sake of it. Having that
Yeah,
freedom to actually enjoy life.
exactly.
Well,
Exactly. That's what it's all about for me. So anything that I do is in service of either having that freedom in my own life or helping somebody else have that freedom in their life.
I think that's a worthy cause to have. I love it. I love it. And I'm also excited to hear about your mistakes because from what I learned, speaking to everyone who I have, when you come across someone with quite a few fingers in the pies and spreads themselves across the sphere rather a lot, it opens yourself up to obstacles, failure, mistakes, and everything that fits under that unfortunate umbrella, but it often leads to some very wise lessons indeed. So I'm just going to pass it over to you so you can share your big, great business mistake and how it came about and the journey it's taken you on since, and I suppose how it's led you to right now in snowy East Coast America.
I know. So I would say that my biggest mistake, it actually actualized in two ways, but it was precipitated by a mindset of not feeling worthy enough. So not feeling like I was enough. And so what I ended up doing are two things. One, in my early 20s, when I was starting my business, I lived in New York City and I spent way more money than I had. And so I got myself into a lot of credit card debt. Some of it was in service of the business, but some of it wasn't. And the reason it stemmed from not feeling like I was worthy enough is because I felt like I had to take certain courses and sign up for certain things and look a certain way and go to certain events and all of these things because I thought I wasn't enough. So I needed to buy these things to have the trappings of enough around me. However, the great thing about that is ultimately it gave me an experience in feeling the financial stress and financial anxiety and shame that now I teach about, and that so I've been able to help other people get out of that same scenario. Another one that was a bit more complex and I don't know, I mean, it's hard because, right, we have this overall spiritual perspective of like a mistake always has such a good learning experience. So it's hard for me to even say it was a mistake, but it was when I went into business with my mom and we didn't have a written agreement. And we never really got clear on the ins and outs of who would do what and compensation and all of that. So a couple years into the partnership, things kind of took a turn that was not so helpful for either of us, just in terms of lack of communication and resentments and all kinds of things. But again, like I've it all worked out in the end. But yeah, I would say going into business with somebody without a clear agreement was definitely a mistake that I have learned a lot from. And again, it was sourced from that not feeling like I was enough and that I needed to partner with somebody who was more successful, more of an expert, XYZ, and not thinking that I had enough to offer.
And who was your partner again? Sorry.
My mom.
So your mom, because that must have been quite a difficult thing
It
in
was.
general. I mean, people quite often they need that extra support. They want to kind of go into a partnership with an idea, because it just eases that burden. And I suppose our initial thing is, well, I'll do it with maybe a sibling or someone who I trust a great deal, because if I'm going to go into business with anyone, then I want it to be someone who's very, very close to me. But it can just open up a complete Pandora's box.
Yeah, and it was, it opened up a lot of things for us in terms of our own relationship to become closer, for sure. But it also highlighted the places for me where I would dumb myself down or second guess myself or always be putting myself second and not really honoring my own gifts and not really honoring what I had to bring to the table. So it was complex. It was super, super complex. And, but to sort of generalize that lesson, not everybody's going to go into business with their mother. However, the lesson really about second guessing ourselves or not trusting that what we have to say is worthy enough or that we are worthy enough is something that I think everyone can relate to. And then what we do to make us feel enough can be problematic sometimes when it's not being sourced from that place of, I have something to offer and I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. It was sourced from, I am afraid I don't have something to offer and therefore I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. And so it doesn't really matter what the decision is, I think, so much as what is precipitating the decision, if that makes sense.
Oh, absolutely. And both of these issues, they both stem from that idea of being worthy. And I think that's something an entrepreneur, I certainly can relate to it, happens very much in the beginning. When you were in New York and you were overspending, was this in the early parts of your business and your entrepreneurial life?
It was. Yeah, it was my early 20s. I was just getting started, and certainly just getting started in the adult world of business. I had a business starting in college, but when you're studying, and it was like not really a real business. So it was the early days. But I will say, one of the things I find about personal growth and learning is that it's like this upward spiral. So each of us, I think, has some of these same core issues. Like we have stuff that we'll be working on, whether it's about worthiness, whether it's about, structure or focus or discipline or whatever your thing is. And we learn about those issues possibly from making mistakes and then learning something from them. And then what I find in my own life is, in my own business, is that I then circle back to the same issue and I'm like, I totally thought I had handled this one. But so I'm back at the same place, but it's not the same place. It's like the same issue, but I'm at a higher level of awareness and a higher level. So that's why I call it an upward spiral. It's like we're revisiting the same old stuff, but at a more evolved level. So I don't think we ever really get over our stuff.
And each time, I suppose you're a little bit more prepared. And like you say, you're able to be conscious about it and go, I am in this position. I need to now get through this.
And oh, no, this is like that other time, but not as bad.
That is the dream anyway. That is the hope. And I just want to focus a little bit more. I want to then go into the idea of partnership with your mum a bit more too. But first, just this whole idea of conformity, because in the beginning it is difficult, and I don't care how confident you may seem on the outside. On the inside, we all have insecurities and this self-doubt, because until you start making a success of things, not just financially, but just connecting with the right things, you're always going to be having these thoughts in your brain. Are the ideas up here actually worth something?
Right.
And for you, it was very much a case of then trying to, get rid of this doubt by filling your life with other things. And I think this is something that everyone goes through, whether it's you get the fancy car because it helps you come across, more professional, or you get the suit, or you have a particular haircut. This idea of conforming to society's view of success. And it's such a difficult thing to get through. It's
seductive. Yeah. It is seductive, and that way, that's why I love this concept of making a life, not just a living, and really honing in on, okay, what does it mean to you to be successful? Because success is such a amorphous word. Like, what does that even mean? I mean, I have no idea, what your success, what my success. You and I probably want some similar things, but some really different things. And that piece about conformity is so key, because what will happen is if you don't take the time to say, what is success to me? And what does that actually look like? What does that actually feel like? More importantly, you will be continue to chase and chase and chase and chase and chase. And then you'll get all the stuff, the car, the, beautiful wife, the beautiful husband, the kid, like literally whatever it is that you think is on your list. And the most common thing in the world is to have people get there and then say, is this it?
Yeah, like now what?
Now what? And it's like, of course, we always, I mean, I heard Tony Robbins speak this summer for the first time, and he says that happiness comes from progress and growth, right? We're always, especially as an entrepreneur, you're always going to be chewing on something. We're always going to be up to something. Like there's never like, okay, now I'm done. But it's having that delicate dance between always chewing on something, always having progress, always growing in some area, challenging yourself. And then also on the other hand, saying, my idea of success is being able to take Friday afternoons off, which it is. Like, I love being able to take Friday afternoons off. Or, my idea of success is if I feel like one day making chicken soup all day instead of working and not getting into my email and it's a Wednesday, that I can do that. Yeah. But I realized a little while ago, and I'm still realizing that those things don't actually have dollar amounts attached to them. So anyway, that's like the inquiry of what does freedom or what does success mean to me. Obviously, that was a Freudian slip. Success means freedom to me. What does that mean to you? And really having that conversation and honoring that if your version of it looks different than the people around you, or than society, or than what your parents think you should have, that's okay. And there may feel like there's friction there at first, like everyone's going this way and you're going that way, and that can feel deeply uncomfortable because we're herd creatures and we want to belong and we have that sense of connection and like we are all supposed to be able to relate. But sometimes if everyone is going this way and you're going that way, that's a really good thing.
Yeah. Well, I totally agree, and something that I've come across a lot on this journey is this idea of defining your version of success. And until you figure that out and you come up with a definition, you have no idea what you're going to get yourself into otherwise. Because, like you say, you might strive for that $1 million, but then you get there and you're just like, this is it? Like, well, now what? Now what do I do? And if you can define your success, then you can surround yourself with like-minded individuals where you'll be able to thrive off them. And that's where real true happiness comes. And I love how you say that most of these inner built and deep meaning successes don't have a dollar attachment to them.
Yeah. I mean, certainly, like studies show that up to about the equivalent of $50,000 a year, whatever in your currency is, there is a difference in how much happiness there is compared to how much people make. But once that $50,000 mark is reached, there's not a significant increase in happiness as people's income goes up.
Yeah.
Which is really important to notice.
Absolutely, because ultimately we only need enough money to kind of fulfill our lifestyle, and you can only spend so much money. So you then need to get to a point where I have a deeper meaning, and I need to actually have a life rather than just a living.
Exactly. And now, I mean, I love making money and I am a total proponent of it. So I don't want people listening to think like I'm saying, oh, well, money doesn't buy happiness and therefore you don't need it. I am saying that it's just very important to, I think one of the biggest mistakes that we can make is pursuing money at the cost of all these other things. But instead, what can be really cool is if you begin to build a lifestyle business as an entrepreneur and really tap into what does success mean to you, and you're fulfilling this higher purpose of serving others and doing whatever work you're meant to do, then it's this really cool balance where you are not only enjoying the work that you do, you're also being well compensated for it, and you actually enjoy the process. Because if you're making your money doing something that you hate doing, but it's good money, like, who cares? That I think that among the 5 greatest regrets of the dying are not spending enough time with the people that they love and working too much.
Yeah. No, and it is.
I don't know what the other 3 are. I'd have to Google it. But those 2 stuck with me.
But yeah, quite often our biggest fears, it's in a similar sense to our biggest successes. They don't have a dollar attachment. They're these regrets. They're these loss of time, and time as a sort of scientific thing is infinite, but to us as human beings, it's very finite. And once we lose a moment, we aren't getting it back. It's done. It's gone forever. And I think that's something we all forget from time to time. So just kind of keep him on this idea of conformity. You were young, you spent money, you were trying to conform by filling your world with things. When did the partnership with your mum come in? Was it, a long way down the line? Or
No, it was all kind of right around that same time. Like, it was like I moved to New York, and then I think we went into the partnership maybe like 2 years later, I think, ish. Mm-hmm.
So looking back, do you feel like there was a genuine need to get in partnership with your mom? Or, I mean, it was your mom, but it could be anybody, it could be, a sibling, it could be a friend, it could be someone that you meet down at a pub.
Right.
Did you really need a partner, or was it just this, I suppose, shoulder to lean on?
It was that I was scared that I didn't have what it took to do it by myself. And also, I will say this was like another layer. I think fear has a lot of different layers. I was scared of that I didn't have what it took to do it by myself. But I was also scared of putting myself on the line in the way that I knew I needed to in order to be successful. So it was also that I knew I had what it took, but I was scared of how uncomfortable it would be to put myself out there in that way. And it felt much safer to hide myself within an existing brand, within an existing business that my mom had already created. And then she got to be the one out there putting herself on the line, because I grew up watching her do that. And my mom has been really a pioneer in the women's health movement. And she gets a lot of criticism. And I've watched that my entire life. So there was this whole other element of, okay, when, if you're not pissing somebody off, you're not saying anything particular. You know what I mean? Like,
absolutely. No, I agree.
I'm not a big controversial person. I don't write about controversial things. I mean, that's just not my style. However, I do now, I get feedback from people. They don't like this thing about me. They're judging me because of X, Y, Z, whatever. And I realize now that one of the reasons I went into that partnership was because I did not want to be the person receiving all of that, because I'm so sensitive, and because anybody, it's just like feels awful, even if you don't know people.
Yeah, no.
It's just awful to be criticized.
Criticism always hurts. Just today I got an email, and it was someone who I am setting up a meeting with, but they said my videos they found it cringeworthy. So I was like, I don't really know how to take that. But okay, because in order for people to love you, you need to kind of be able to make sure certain people hate you, because otherwise you're just having this indifference and like. So it's all about creating love. But in order for certain people to love you, you have to ensure that other people hate you, if that kind of makes sense.
I think that if you're going to develop a community, a fan base, whatever you want to call it, of people who are diehards and they just absolutely adore you, it's true. There has to be a polarity.
Yeah, so go out there, create something that's going to make people cringe people, then you know you're on the right track.
Exactly. And also, like, if you pursue being liked as your primary motivator, you're going to stay small. Yeah.
No, I agree with that. And I think it's something that so many people can relate to, because I talk about it sometimes when I do workshops and speaking. When you surround yourself with like-minded people, you're easing the burden, you're sharing the burden. So collaboration is good. And I think that's a fantastic thing, but it's also a dangerous one, because you can be getting into a partnership, or like you say, involving yourself with another brand just because you're a little bit scared, or you don't want to get fully involved in certain sides of the business. So you think, well, if I get with someone else, then that's not going to be my problem, that can be their problem. But that's not really going to help you as an entrepreneur, and it's not going to really help you grow, and it's probably going to lead to more issues further down the line.
Yeah, I mean, I think it really depends. Like, I'm now business partners with my husband. So it just works really well. But I will say I have learned so much from being in partnership with my mom. So when we formed our business partnership, we sat with a lawyer and we made a written agreement. And this is before we were married, with terms. And it was so helpful because we got on the same page. And so we knew exactly what would happen if either of us decided we wanted to go our separate way. And it's like, with written agreements and just clarity in that way, especially around money, it's like when you go on a picnic, if you forgot the napkins, you're always going to end up spilling something. But if you bring the napkins, like oftentimes you don't need them. So a really clear written agreement is like a good napkin. Like you bring it so you don't need it. It's just like it makes both parties feel safe so that they can both really bloom and flourish, knowing that there's this strong foundation holding the structure.
Well, that's really important, because that was going to be my next question. Like, I'm assuming you've learned so much, and I'm assuming still to this day, you've obviously in partnership with your husband, but you're always open to other kind of collaborations.
Oh,
that
absolutely.
must have taught you so much on how to kind of set these guidelines and make sure that you don't slip into, certain hardships, because there's always got to be a line between, personal life and the business life. And it goes to show that you can have partnerships with family and with loved ones, but there has to be some kind of line in the sand.
There does, and I mean the line is malleable. Like, sometimes it's like all business for a little while, and sometimes it's lots of breaks and no business. And I think this is a personality type. I love that my life and my business are very closely integrated. To me, that feels like freedom. To me, I love, like, I just went and got my nails done with my sister and then hopped on Skype with you. And then I'm going to go back down and do another thing. And then, it's like and I'm having a call with a girlfriend, like it's all mixed together, and I'm into that. But some people like compartments. And again, your definition of success. I don't mind being on a conference call while I'm stirring soup. Like, I love working from home, but for some people, they want to leave it at the office and just turn it off. So you get to decide.
Absolutely. So just before we move off from the sort of partnership with, especially close people, I suppose, is there something else that you would advise people to do other than just kind of get the legal side of things, so the crossed T's and the dotted I's? Is there something else that people can do to avoid certain hardships?
It's really helpful if you both write down. So in a business, there are things that need to be done, right? There are just tasks that have to happen in order for money to come in the door and a business to keep running. So what would be a really good idea is both parties write down a list of those things that need to happen in order for the business to go, what they love to do and what they hate to do separately, and then come together and talk about them to see, is there any overlap? Are there things that we both love to do that we could split? Are there things that one person loves and one person absolutely hates? Great, those are their things. And then opposite. So you're really clear on what your role is. Because if you end up with both people just trying to do everything, you're going to double up on things that don't require that much time, and then other things are going to get neglected. And maybe it is that there's a great partnership, but maybe there's some tasks that neither of you love to do, and then you need to actually bring on a third, hire or outsource or whatever. So getting clear on what each person's roles are based on what lights them up is really helpful. Not necessarily based on what they're good at, based on what lights them up. And those are two different things. Sometimes they overlap, and that's wonderful. But, we're just living this one time. So you don't want to be doing something every day, day in and day out, that doesn't light you up.
I love that, because that comes just down to communication. And if you get in partnership with someone that you know really well, you might think, we don't need good communication. We know each other. Yeah, it'll be fine.
Yeah. Also, making sure that you have some sort of structure in place where you're having weekly meetings of some kind. Mike and I recently realized that we had let our weekly meetings go, and we were kind of like assumed we were on the same page, and something happened where we were not on the same page. And it was just a wake-up call to say, oh, just because we're married and we see each other every night and we sleep in the same bed does not mean we can read each other's minds. Yeah. So I would say err on the side of over-communication.
Yeah, no, I think that's really good advice.
Communicate.
Because we communicate constantly with staff members and with clients and with suppliers, and it's just, I suppose, easy to forget that we need to communicate with the people closest to us. But without communication, what are we? Well,
Totally.
I'm going to bring things to an end very soon because we've covered so much, and I think it's the kind of journey that absolutely every single entrepreneur, every single person can relate to, because we all begin with this self-doubt and insecurity at some level, and until you can kind of really focus on what's important to you, it's difficult to get past all that. So to help that young entrepreneur out there, that new entrepreneur who's just set up and they kind of have that belief deep down, but it's down there. You know, they've got to peel away the onion. They've got that self-doubt. What advice would you offer them to just kind of get through that and to get past the conformity and to focus on them and, like obviously you do in your world, focus on building a life rather than just a living or a business?
Yeah. So when you're just getting started, I will say there's a little bit more hustle than later on. So, you know, while I do believe in freedom,
oh, thank God.
At the beginning, you know, there's just some hustle, and you're going to be working more hours maybe than you want to, and that's fine. That's like part of the deal. So I would recommend coming up with ways to make it as fun as possible. So that would be one thing, and then also really keeping while making the work as fun as possible, also keeping your goal in mind, like knowing what success means to you. So literally writing that out. What does success mean to me? Maybe having some sort of visual so that during those times when it's really annoying and you're thinking, oh my God, I'm really tired and burned out and whatever, why am I doing this? Because there will be times as an entrepreneur that you think this is way too hard. It would be easier. And you're right. There are times when it would be easier to get a job. But to prevent yourself from doing that, you need to have some sort of touchstone, some sort of thing you can come back to say, oh yeah, this is why I'm doing this. And the reality is, for an entrepreneur, you need to be willing to do things that other people cannot. No, you need to be willing to do things that other people will not do so that you can do things that other people cannot do. And that's... Sure, it's just it's like freaking uncomfortable to be an entrepreneur. And if you're not uncomfortable, you're not doing it right.
I feel comforted by that because I feel uncomfortable like 95% of the time. So that's good news. Right. That's good news. No, I think it's great advice. And the whole idea of just kind of getting past conformity. We're always, as people, especially in the early days, comparing ourselves to others, putting people on a pedestal, trying to reach them, but we'll never reach people, and we'll never count, because when you put someone who's an idol of yours on a pedestal, by definition, you'll never reach them. They're always going to be that little bit out of reach. And it's exactly the same with, you know, cars and money and things. You can bring more stuff into your life, but until you have a bigger meaning, then you will always be chasing and trying to catch the shadow and trying to just fill more and more, and bad things happen with that. So Kate, thank you ever so much. It's been an absolute pleasure, and what a journey it's been. It's great to see that you have hit a few stumbling blocks, and that even someone as successful as you and doing so many great things these days, you did have that self-doubt in the beginning. That, I'm sure, will help a lot of people.
And I continue to have it. I mean, that's the reality. Like, I know you're trying to wrap up, but I just want to say, it lessens, but the bigger things you do, you're still going to have it. Like, it is a myth that the fear and the doubt goes away. It doesn't go away. You just keep acting even though it's happening.
But like you say, it's an upward cycle. You will come across the same...
Yeah. At a higher level.
Yeah, you will come across the same obstacles, the same issues. They'll take different manifestations, but you'll be like, oh, this was similar to what I experienced 3 years ago, but I'm in a stronger place now. I kind of am a bit more on top of things. But in 5 years' time, I'll be more on top of things too. It never goes away. You're just more prepared.
Exactly.
And I think the really important thing, which I noticed what you said earlier, was you're just conscious of it. Sometimes in the early days, you don't realize you've made a mistake until it's maybe 6 months down the line. Whereas eventually you realize, I'm making a mistake right now. I need to take a step back and right some wrongs.
Totally.
That's the dream.
Totally.
Thank you, Kate. It's been an absolute pleasure. And indeed, Mr. or Mrs. Viewer and Listener, thank you for joining us. So from me and Kate, a big hearty cheers.
Thank you.
And there you have it, folks, another session of the Purple Coffee podcast at an end. It was an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for joining me, and indeed thank you for Kate for being part of not just this podcast but the Successful Mistake. And what an inspiring, great mistake it is. We all feel it, especially in the beginning, but to an extent, it probably never leaves any of us. Those insecurities swarm inside, and we try and fight them too often by filling our life with needless clutter, or teaming up with someone who we just don't particularly want to, but feel the need to. It's difficult to balance, and it takes a real brave person to overcome this, but you are a brave person, just like Kate is, and I think you can take a lot from it, because if someone like Kate can overcome them and looking back and go, wow, Kate Northrup deals with the same insecurity as me, that's huge. Well, yeah, you can take a lot from such ways. So thank you ever so much. And if you want to learn more about Kate and her ways and links to her website and books and stuff, head over to tdog.co/purplecoffee34. That's tdog.co/purplecoffee34. There are all the links you'll need for Kate and her world, but also to the Purple Coffee podcast. You can subscribe to the podcast and whatnot, and sign up to the mailing list so you receive daily doses of awesome from me in short and sweet fashion, as well as getting all the podcast before everyone else. And if you are listening to this on the go, maybe on your phone, at some point just check out and share the love. If you could subscribe, rate and review this podcast, it would mean oh so much. Yes, yes, yes. Share the love, kid. Share the love. And that's it. From me, I would like to wish you a most awesome day. And once again, a big thanks to yourself and to Kate. Turndog out.